Hey everyone, this is Adam Stroop from Professional Office Services, POS. I'd like to welcome you to today's 15-minute webinar featuring one of our partners, Health iPASS, on accelerating patient payments. That said, I'll keep it brief, but I've had the pleasure of working with this gentleman a few times. We've traveled together, and Imran Ahmad is a guy that he knows healthcare. He understands the patient payment side and obviously the entire RCM process for healthcare. He's such an interesting guy because he has so many different things that he's done in his career. And so at this, and we probably won't be able to get into that today, but if you guys want more information on Health iPASS, obviously reach out to us, reach out to Imran. With that said, I'll turn it over to Health iPASS, the Chief Operating Officer for Health iPASS, Imran Ahmad. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate the introduction. It's been great traveling with you as well. And for the folks on the line, obviously we're here to talk about accelerating patient payments, but it usually helps to have a little bit of background on myself and who is giving the talk today. And in addition to being a Chief Operating Officer at Health iPASS, I'm actually a general partner at OCA Ventures. And so I've looked at the healthcare spectrum and looking at practices from a couple different angles. One is from the purchasing angle, in my old role from a private equity hat standpoint, and obviously knowing the importance of cash and driving cash to the practice has been one of the focuses of my career to date. So that sort of led to the impetus of the creation of Health iPASS in the first place. So wanted to start off with that just high-level introduction and then flow forward from there for today's webinar. But what we're here to talk about, is obviously accelerating patient payments. And, just to give you a little bit of a classification of the problem and the scope of the problem, this is data that was provided by the MGMA in regards to the rise in high deductible health plans and the dramatic transformation in payer mix that has occurred over the last 10 years or so. If you were to take a look at an average practice, in 2012, 10% of what they were collecting was coming directly from patients. That has since dramatically transformed, and if you're a particular practice, you're probably seeing upwards of 20 to 30% of your receipts coming directly from patients and hunting down patients, for lack of a better term. And that's all stemming from the increase in high deductible health plans. The data that I have on the screen is from 2017, but the trend keeps dramatically turning in the direction of high deductible health plans, where if you ask ADP, one of the largest PEOs, how many and what percentage of their population is opting for high deductible health plans, it's now greater than 50%. So from a sampling size of America, that's pretty dramatic. And you're seeing the first $3,000, sometimes $6,000 coming directly out of the patient's pocket, and that's only going to worsen as things progress. That scope is not changing in a favorable direction for practices for the most part. And to illustrate what that problem is really looking like, I like to take this as an example. So if you were to take a 10-doc or 10-provider orthopedic practice and averaged about $1.5 million of revenue per orthopod, you're looking at a $15 million practice. If you were to take a broad scope of that, the patient pay percentage of that is 25%. So about $3,750,000 of patient pay would be coming in from that same practice. And again, according to the MGMA, and this is national average, the collection rate of that patient balance is about 67%, which is leading to a significant issue in bad debt. If you were to look at your practice's revenue and evaluate what is happening, the vast majority of practices that I see are struggling with the same problem, which is one, their AR balance is rising, and it continues to rise. And especially if you look at the different buckets of AR, there's usually the 0 to 30 bucket, which is maintaining relatively steady. There's 30 to 60, which, we're attacking pretty coherently and well. And then what happens is in that 90 to 120-day bucket, that effectively is what we classify as going to the graveyard. And the graveyard, as you all know, is the 120-plus day AR bucket that a practice has. And we're seeing those balances dramatically increase month over month in a practice. And it's getting to the point where practices are writing off significant chunks, sending to collections, and or spending a lot of resources really trying to collect from those patients 90, 120 days after their date of service. And, it's a problem that signifies how broken the process really is. On average, most practices that I speak to are sending up to 3 statements, sometimes even 5 statements to a patient to really try to get the balance. Hopefully you're using our good friends at Kiosks to help on that statementing side, because they do a much better job from presentment and actually being able to collect through the statement. But nonetheless, it's a problem. And as you see on the graphic on the right, 60% of patients are not going to pay their bill once they leave the office. So you really need to be very focused on collecting from the patients while they're in the office. The other part of the problem from a process broken standpoint, and you all know this, but I feel like it's good to give a quick summary, is what percentage is being sent to collections to collect pennies on the dollar. If you look at an average collections agency, they expect 12 cents on the dollar being collected. So it's not a really strong alternative, and it's a surefire way to sort of cash in some chips, but at a significant loss for the practice. And that's what's happening and causing people to write off bad debt. You're seeing that growing patient AR, as I mentioned, and the rise in claim denials due to registration errors. So, the process is broken. What can we do to fix it? And, at the end of the day, it's how to accelerate those patient payments. What we've found is that the practices that are the best, and we've now looked at over 200 practices and really deeply evaluated their financial health, is the practice that has a very well-defined financial policy for their patient payments typically comes out on top. And it's mainly because of the thought process that they've put towards it and them understanding the problem. Many folks that I talk to, at first brush, when I ask them, what is your patient payment collection rate? Their natural inclination is to give me an answer that's 95%. We're doing great. And that's when I ask people, let's stop and peel back the onion a little bit and really dig into what is it that we're asking when we ask for patient net collection rate. And it's not, after things have been written off. It's not after things have been sent to collections. A good way to estimate what's happening and what your loss is to take a look at what's in your 90 to 120-day bucket at any given point in time and multiply by 12. Because that is realistically what's at risk for falling into that graveyard and not being collectible. And that's a really important point that I wanted to bring out. Because if you look at that graveyard bucket, and now you try to figure out, how am I going to bring this to the forefront? How am I going to have this conversation earlier in the process so that the patient's not going home before we have that conversation about paying their bill? And so you really have to make it easier for the patients to pay. And that happens pre-arrival. So, as soon as that patient schedules the appointment, are you doing a good job having the conversation of collecting any past due amounts? When they come in, are you giving them the ability to have, to put up a one-time payment? Are you allowing them to go to a website and do online bill pay, set up a payment plan, keep their credit card on file while they're in the office? And those are the types of conversations that the staff really needs to start having, and it comes down to a training with the staff. So I like to bring up this example. I recently got LASIK on my eyes. From start to finish in the process of getting LASIK, because they collect everything up front before the surgery, right? They have the ability and just the scope to be able to do that. But from start to finish, from the doc to the ophthalmologist to the front desk person, I was encouraged to have the conversation about how was I going to pay my bill. Step one, I walked into that practice. They immediately presented me an opportunity to use care credit, considering my surgery was going to cost $3,500 on my eyes. And I'm not saying that we have to take as aggressive an approach on the physician practice side when it's not a elective procedure. I'm saying that our staff need to be really trained and not be embarrassed to have that conversation with the front desk. And are you leveraging the technology that's available to help drive that process forward? I'll spend a little bit on the technology, mainly because it's a small commercial for what we do at Health iPASS, but you want to engage with the patient before they come in. And what you're seeing on the left is the features of Health iPASS, but really the conversation needs to be, patient, you're coming in, you have a prior balance, and we're going to want you to pay that either when you come in or, if you can, even before you come in, and starting that conversation ahead of time. Now, at the point of service, there are multiple kiosk-type solutions and tools out there, whether you use Health iPASS or you use Instamed or you use POS or whomever. From the standpoint of being able to collect at the point of service, you really want to drive home the message of collecting copays before they see the provider. We have one group on our platform that's live that does not see a patient unless that patient puts their card on file prior to coming and visiting that doctor. So there are obviously aggressive elements that you can do and take, and they have a phenomenal collection rate. It's an orthopedic group that's collecting 97% of the patient dollars when the MGMA average is 67 cents on the dollar. So you can take an aggressive stance, or you can just be smart about having that conversation and being able to present estimates and out-of-pocket. The more times the patient sees what they can do, the better the opportunity is for them, and the better the opportunity is for you to collect. And on the back end, you want that whole e-statement and e-billing process to be ingrained so that it's not 5 weeks after the time of service when the patient sees a bill for the first time and they don't remember what they even came in to see the doctor about. You want clear, concise statements, e-statements, electronic billing. You want to have the ability at that same point to put that patient on a flexible payment plan. And I highly recommend that everyone have an online bill pay portal, because it's just money that you're losing if you require a patient to mail an envelope with a check in it. It's just not efficient. And nowadays, most of these processes allow auto posting, so it saves time and effort for the practice. I'll give a quick example of a case study because I know I'm running through on time. But this is a client, Colorado Allergy and Asthma, who adopted a lot of these techniques. Number one is they allowed putting the card on file for the practice by using Health iPASS, but they also did online bill pay portals. They also had a very clear, concise statementing process. And just year over year, same number of doctors, same number of locations, same everything else, they were able to see a dramatic uptick in patient collections. And I think that's sort of the benefit. But how do you accelerate? And that's where that card on file comes in. If you look at their days in AR, that has dropped from 48 here in March to 36 in August 2018 when we last did the study, and that's continued to drop. And it's because you want to have that money coming in faster, and making that process easier for the patient also makes the patient happier. not having to struggle to find a stamp and an envelope to mail a check, it's not what the patient really wants to do. And you can see real data here in terms of how it has impacted the days in AR and the ability to collect. So with that, I'll just summarize and conclude. You're seeing the kiosk model and this automation process all over the world, in restaurants, to airports, to Best Buy is even doing great things on that front. It needs to happen, and that transformation needs to happen in healthcare because it's the way of the future, and it's honestly the way patients now expect to pay and want their practice to adopt that element in the future. And this is just how the Health iPASS kiosk looks. It's one of the potential options that you can have there, and we're proud to partner with POS on that. And just the last sort of commercial I'll give is we've recently launched a product where all you do is you check in the patient, you submit a claim, and as soon as insurance adjudicates that claim, Health iPASS will pay you your patient balance right away. So it takes the hassle out of at all collecting from the patients. And if you're interested, I'd be happy to have that conversation. But that's sort of the long and the short of it. And from a conclusion standpoint, every practice really needs to look internally and say, are we making this process easier for the patients, thereby accelerating our collection rate? And to do that, you need to embrace technology from the online bill pay standpoint to the card on file process, to even better statementing and how those statements look, which our partners at POS are phenomenal at and have incredible statistics to prove out their value and worth on that front. But with that, Adam, I'll pass the reins back to you and open the floor for any questions that we may have.
Perfect. Thanks, Imran. Great job, obviously. Does anybody have any questions for Imran on this matter? Do we have a question? It looks like maybe. Can I use POS statements and Health iPASS together, Imran? That's the question.
100% yes. I think one of the big benefits in the partnership that we have with POS is that mutual communication. So, in fact, we highly encourage using the POS statement to supplement and pair with Health iPASS so that you're getting the best of both worlds in terms of the electronic side of it at the point of service, and then the back end side with what POS provides from a paper statement standpoint as well as their electronic billing standpoint, I think is phenomenal. So we love working with POS on that particular element, and a lot of our practices do use POS for their paper statements and then use Health iPASS at point of service. Great question, though.
I have a couple more that have come in.
Oh, okay.
Another one was, will this check ensure eligibility and benefits?
Yes, it does check insurance eligibility and benefits. One of the parts of Health iPASS that's at the front end is we are running eligibility prior to the patient coming in. We're running eligibility while the patient is in and being able to present them with their particular copay, anything from a deductible remaining standpoint. And it also really helps with some groups to replace their EDI altogether because you can run eligibility through Health iPASS. But the answer to that is a resounding yes and a big value of what we are able to provide.
Great. And it looks like we do have two more coming in. And one is, how is this different in all the tools of online bill pay with POS versus iPASS?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So POS does a phenomenal job with their online bill pay platform on the back end for sure. What we try to do is really bring these to the forefront at the front end. So when it comes to things like appointment reminders, enabling patients to be able to pay through the appointment reminder at the front end. Also, at the point of service, collecting copays and past due balances, which is relatively simple from a technology standpoint, but we facilitate that. But the big thing is, on the right-hand side of this kiosk is a credit card swipe. So if you look at this black case, that's actually a place where you swipe your credit card, and we keep that credit card on file so that after the patient goes home, we can just simply send them an e-statement that says, we've got your card on file. We are going to charge that card on file for any residual amount because you gave us authorization and authority at the front end. And I'm happy to go into great detail and show you exactly how that process works. But again, to answer the question, it supplements what POS has on the online bill pay side. And if you're happy with POS's online bill pay, we encourage you to keep using that because that helps drive and accelerate those patient payments, but to use Health iPASS at the front end side of the equation.
Great, thanks. We just have two more that I'll just mention, and then what we can do is anyone can follow up after with additional questions. So I'll just say them both to you. One is, are the virtual payments that are collected imported into the practice management system and auto-posted? And also asking if someone is currently using Phreesia, how is that different?
Great. Those are both great questions. I'll talk about the virtual payments being auto-posted first. So the answer is a resounding yes. Everything that is done from a transactional standpoint in Health iPASS is auto-posted to your PM. So that's one of the huge advantages of what we are able to provide with Health iPASS is any payment that occurs on the Health iPASS platform is then auto-posted back into the PM. So makes your life a lot easier, hopefully, on that front. And it's one of the big value adds. The second question regarding Phreesia is there's one big thing I would say is if your practice is using Phreesia and you're happy with it from the forms intake piece, I think that's fantastic and works really well for a lot of practices. At the end of the day, Health iPASS is focused on the revenue cycle part of the equation. What I like to sort of go over is, one, from a financial benefit standpoint, Phreesia is really not the same in terms of its impact at the point of service and how it's driving real dollars into the practice. They've got some statistics that are pretty compelling, but don't really hold the key to what Health iPASS is able to do. And then the second component, which I talked a little bit about, is here at the end, which is our RevSure product, which is literally taking the burden of any patient collection off you completely and making sure that you have zero patient AR. And that's, you obviously check in a patient using Health iPASS, and as soon as you submit that claim and insurance adjudicates it, Health iPASS is bearing full risk. And we will fund you the day the claim is adjudicated. And that's a pretty dramatic difference from anything Phreesia or other vendors can offer, is we're actually able to go in and pay you, write you a check right there and then for that patient balance right after we know what the patient responsibility is. So it's really taking the accelerating patient payments to another level where we are taking your patient AR to zero because we're funding that claim for you. And then, the burden is on Health iPASS and the risk is on Health iPASS. It's non-recourse. And I think that's a really important point that you brought up and something that we've been very focused on. But I appreciate the time and all the questions. Those were great questions. And if there are any further questions, obviously, feel free to reach out directly to me at imran@healthipass.com. I will answer questions personally and direct you to somebody else if I don't know the answer.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.